any minute. Oh, see there? You gotta wait anyway.
Okay. Carol, you ready?
I am ready.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Montgomery City Council meeting. It is exactly 6 o'clock p.m. and we will begin our meeting. Please look at your phones to ensure that they are on silent or off so that we are not disrupted and everybody can hear the meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. There is a quorum, however, we are missing Councilman Byron Stanford. This evening we'll begin with the invocation given by T.J. Wilkerson.
Lord, we come tonight. You brought us through the storms and the rain, and we made it. We thank you, Lord, for watching over us. We thank you, Lord, for all those families that came through and those who came out to help the community. We thank you for our administration. We thank you for everything that we are going through right now, that we come through with a positive mind. Lord, look over us, bless us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance, starting with the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag? Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We'll begin this evening with receiving Planning and Zoning Commission final reports. Item number 1 on your agenda. Receive the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendations and reports for the following. A rezoning request from B Commercial to R1 Single Family Residential for Hills of Town Creek, Section 5. B, a rezoning request from R1 Single Family Residential to B Commercial for 14855 North Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas. And C, a special use permit application for a microblading studio located at 20165 Eva Street, Suite C in Montgomery, Texas.
Mayor, the Planning and Zoning Commission held the public hearings for them on January 4th, 2022 in conjunction with their regular monthly meeting. And they allowed interested persons to be heard regarding this request. 2 residents attended the meeting along with Councilwoman Davis. Both residents asked for clarification regarding the city-owned property in the Hills of Town Creek that was labeled future water plant. No opposition to rezoning of either properties, or the special use permit application was given, and the report recommendations attached for council's review and acceptance.
I make a motion that we accept item 1 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept item 1 as presented. This motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. It is now open for discussion. All those in favor of accepting item 1 as presented say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will accept item 1 as presented. Public hearings. Item number 2 on your agenda. Convene into public hearing for the purpose of giving interested persons an opportunity to provide comments on the following. A rezoning request from B Commercial to R1 Single Family Residential for Hills of Town Creek, Section 5. B, a rezoning request from R1 Single Family Residential to B Commercial for 14855 North Liberty Street, Montgomery, Texas. And C, a special use permit application for a microblading studio located at 20165 Eva Street, Suite C, Montgomery, Texas. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on?
Maybe can we state the time that...
I'm sorry, yes, this public hearing is beginning at 6:04.
Thank you.
Can I ask Arnett to go to the podium?
Sure.
Sorry, Arnett, you weren't at P&Z, so I know the questions came up that there were...
Barnett, would you go to the podium?
Sorry.
Can you state your name and record?
Yeah.
Arnett Easley.
So the question came up in P&Z that there were some concerns about the fact that the city was only notifying within 200 feet, and they were just curious what your plans were with the building at 14855 North Liberty. Do you have a set plans, or you're just leasing it?
Well, not leasing it. Actually, I want to rehabilitate it, and then I would decide what to do with it. So right now, that's a part of me cleaning up the city,
Yeah.
one city at a time. So, but potentially commercial, develop.
But not so much specific as far as your cleaning business or anything else, nothing set yet?
No,
Okay,
no.
that was a big question.
Anything else?
It looks amazing.
Well, thank you.
looks really
Thank you.
good. Yes, it does.
I'm for hire.
Thank you.
If there's no one else that would like to speak on this public hearing, item number 2, then we will close it at 6:06 PM. Adjourn into public hearings. 6:05. Reconvene in a regular meeting at 6:05. We have the Visitors and Citizens Forum, and I received one request this evening. Mr. Floyd Montgomery, and would you please approach the podium and state your name and your address for the record? Thank you.
My name is Floyd Montgomery, and the reason I moved to Montgomery, Texas is I have Montgomery Family Museum in Montgomery, Texas. I have over 2,500 Montgomery items, and one of the things I have, I imagine most of you have seen Back to the Future, the second volume, where they had winners of 1950 to 2000. There's a design on the front that shows number 31 football player. And that's Wilbert Montgomery. He's the brother of John Montgomery that used to work at the Conroe Courthouse, at the Conroe Library, but he works at the Conroe Courthouse now. And John, my friend, put me on the phone to his brother Wilbert back about a month ago. Wilbert did not know he was on the front cover of this book. They also have a family reunion every year, and I suggested to him that they had the reunion in Montgomery, Texas, and he thought it was a good idea. So hopefully sometime this summer, there'll be a bunch of other Montgomerys coming here.
Are y'all related in any way, Mr. Montgomery?
Sorry?
Are y'all related in any way?
Yeah, back to Adam and Eve.
That's good. I like it. All right.
But there are 10 boys and 2 girls in this family. 4 of the boys, Wilbert, his brother Tyrone, who had played, only retired recently, was very successful. 2 others, Cleotha and Frank, played for about a year or 2. Frank played in a Canadian football league. I have, in my collection, I have an item signed by General Richard Montgomery. It was the first American general killed in the Revolution. And most Montgomery counties and towns in the United States that called Montgomery was after him. I've also got an item signed by Fillmore from Montgomery World War II fame. His grandfather Robert Montgomery was an Indian in the 1850s, and he was the one in charge of putting down the Indian rebellion in India in the 1850s. But one of my more interesting letters, written by James Montgomery, first baronet of Stanhope, Scotland, dated 1797. He's writing to a friend about the escape of the King of France from Paris. Do any of you know what happened to that king? French Revolution? You heard the guillotine? He didn't stay escape very long. But anyway, I'm hoping to have a Montgomery Museum in Montgomery, Texas sometime this year.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know if he comes.
Also, if you would ever go on eBay, put in your last name in the search window and see what pops up. Although I've been collecting Montgomery items for over 35 years, most of what I have is the last 12 years off of eBay. You might be surprised what you can get.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
Yeah, thank you.
Next item of business on your agenda is the consent agenda. Item number 3, matters related to the approval of the December 14th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. 4, consideration and possible action regarding adoption of the election services agreement by and between the City of Montgomery and Montgomery County elections for the May 7th, 2022 election. And 5, consideration and possible action regarding adoption of the joint election agreement by and between the City of Montgomery and Montgomery County elections for the purpose of sharing jointly conducted elections to be held on May 7th, 2022. Council, you can take these individually or cumulatively. What is your desire?
cumulatively, please?
Okay.
I'm good with that.
I move to take this cumulatively, I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items accumulatively and together.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda altogether. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. It is open for discussion. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda together, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will accept the consent agenda as presented. Next item of business on your agenda is consideration and possible action. Number 6, consideration and possible action regarding naming Diana Cooley to serve as Deputy City Secretary.
Diana Cooley currently serves in the records as a records administrative clerk, has worked closely with Susan Hensley for a couple of years. As you know, Susan Hensley is retiring as of this coming Friday. Diana is currently enrolled in the Texas Municipal Clerk Certification course and will be attending the TOCA Election Law Seminar in Denton on January 11th, 2022, which is why she is not here tonight. Many of you have seen her helping us set up for previous meetings. This action will allow Diana Cooley to continue the duties of the Office of City Secretary during the process of hiring a new City Secretary.
I'll make the motion to name Diane Cooley as the Deputy City Secretary.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept Diana Cooley as the Deputy City Secretary. This motion is debatable, amendable, it requires majority vote. It's open for discussion. All those in favor of accepting Diana Cooley to be the Deputy City Secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will accept Diana Cooley as the Deputy City Secretary. Number 7 on your agenda, consideration of possible action regarding approval of purchase and use of license plate reader cameras. Chief Solomon.
Mayor, Council, back in the budget workshop, is when these were approved in the budget for the cameras. These are license plate reader cameras. They're not cameras that go in our cars. We gave each one of you a map at that time to show you where we would be placing these around the city. These cameras are good for investigative purposes, crimes. They're also good for if we have a vehicle that comes from another place that's been put on a list where there's been a crime, these cameras will pick it up. I think Conroe picked up over 9 million license plate cameras over the last 5 or 6 months. And that's what this does. If we get a burglary inside of a neighborhood, vehicles burglarized, and I don't know if you've been listening to it, since the state law has been passed where everybody can have a pistol, crooks are now breaking into cars and they're stealing pistols. And when they're stealing these pistols, if we get someone in your subdivision and where we're going to place these cameras at, if somebody says there was a red car, I seen a red car leave your subdivision, if we go in this system, we look for all red cars. Those red cars will come up, the license plates will come up on those cars. We'll know exactly where they came from, and we're going to place those strategically around the city. And there was some confusion as to whether we were going to put them in our cars. These are not license plate readers that narcotic officers use to sit out in front of hotels. These are true readers that will be placed all the way around the city.
Chief, go ahead. I was going to ask, did the number increase since our last discussion about it? I don't know, I was thinking we were talking about 4 of these. Is that what we were talking about last time as well?
We thought 10. The price we put in the budget was for 10 cameras.
Okay.
Because those 10 will cover the entire city. We've looked in each places to cover where we can get an angle from each subdivision and each business.
So Richard, where is this at in the budget specifically?
I think we budgeted $27,000 for it. It comes in at $27,500.
Okay. And it's under the police or general fund? Because
It's under police.
Please.
Okay.
It's under police.
The documentation here is not accurate. It says in here that it's coming from general fund, and on page, item number 7, page 81, says it's 5 cameras and coming from general fund, and page 82 and 83 show a bid for 10 cameras, and it comes in at $27,500. So it's contradictory information.
I'm not sure who wrote that, but these are in the police budget. And they were in the budget for 10 cameras for $27,000. It's the same thing that we approved at the workshop, and then was eventually approved by City Council during the budget approval.
And as far as the resolution goes, we can change that number from 5 to 10 with the motion from council. The police fund is a subcategory of the general fund. So the police, public works, all those departments are part of the general fund. This is a sub-part of the fund. So that's what, and to be correct, both answers, they're part of the police budget, but they're in the general fund, are correct, and it's more specific to say it that way. As far as then the resolution there saying that 5, if council can approve this with an amendment to make that 10, then we can correct that for signature.
So is there any, I hear you on the budget, and I'm glad they're in the budget, because that was my next question, is where are they at in the budget? Because it's a big giant number, so it doesn't break down, and I even looked at my breakdown, and I didn't see a map of where they're going, but neither here nor there. My concerns are, how do we regulate not coming back next year and asking for 3 more law enforcement officers for employment, because now we took all of our officers out of the city limits on arrest or license plate scans, and we are now degrading the safety for our own citizens here because we don't have law enforcement on the street because they're doing arrest and transportation to county based upon the increased.
I think that works, I think it works just opposite, Councilwoman, because what we've got here, we've got license plate readers now. We do it every day. We've got officers who leave this city every day to take people to the county. That's not going to change. With those license plate readers here in town, it gives us an edge on if something happens while that officer's gone. We have an investigative chance the next day to find out exactly what happens. So I think it works just the opposite, because we're not going to be able to prevent people from leaving town, because when we make an arrest, we have to go to the county. So it's quite the opposite.
And also, I talked to Sergeant Smith with Conroe PD. They're also using these flock management. Is there any additional support that you're planning on collaborating with them so that we both have receiving access to each other's systems?
Yes, we'll be doing an MOU with everyone who has these. Not just them. We'll be talking with Katy, Jersey Village, City of Houston. Crime travels throughout. So
But they aren't all using the same systems. Like MCSO is using a totally different system that's considerably more expensive and doesn't integrate with Flock, so it's proprietary.
We're using the same systems that Conroe uses.
Right.
Right.
And Willis doesn't have any of these in place at all, none,
Willis
correct?
doesn't have any of these. When we started to look at these, we looked at our location. We looked at our major highway, which is 105. 105 is growing rapidly. So we looked at the thoroughfares of 105, we looked at coming off of 45, we looked at the traffic coming out of Conroe into here. We've also looked at how many arrests we've made from people that were coming outside of Houston, coming out of Conroe, coming out of Huntsville. So we looked at the totality of things before we even thought the cameras would do us any good. So those are things we took a look at beforehand. And also we took a look at different cities, such as Jersey Village. We've arrested at least 3 people that came out of Jersey Village. Short story for you, to show you that crime travel. We were getting burglarized. There was T-Mobiles back a couple of years ago. T-Mobile, every time they opened up, they would get burglarized. We had one to get burglarized 3 nights after it opened. So we talked with the city of Pasadena, we talked with the city of Houston, and we talked with the city of Sealy. We talked with Sealy. And what we found out, just by talking to all these people, these guys always showed back up 2 nights later. 2 nights later at 4 a.m. in the morning, we caught those guys breaking back into the same T-Mobile that had been restocked. So it's about passing on information with law enforcement, and that's what these cameras are going to do for us. It will help us to do all this. It's just a matter of technology and getting us in the game and keeping the city safe.
And 10 is the necessary number?
10 is a good number for this city, because it's what we need to make sure we've got them in all the strategic places within the city.
So City of Conroe, who has a population of 200,000,
I think they got 50.
they have 19.
Okay.
According to Sergeant Smith, who oversees them all, they have 19.
I talked with Smith. I'm not going to say he's wrong on that, but I think they have a couple more, or they're starting to order some.
Yeah. He said they've been moving them and that they're planning on ordering more soon, but they have 19 for the City of Conroe. So we're asking for half of that, and we have a tenth of the population.
It's not so much about the population as it is the places that these cameras will be set in. So it's not so much about the population. It's where the cameras will be placed.
About traffic count and movement.
Yeah.
Because there's just not people that live in the city that are driving through the
Yeah,
city.
so it's not about the population of the city, and that's where we have to get away from that. It's not about the population. It's about where these cameras are being placed at within the city. That's going to give us the information that we need.
So what are our placement locations?
I gave you guys that on a map. I didn't expect this question here today. I do have the map. During the workshop, I gave each one of you a map of where these will be placed at. But they'll be placed, and I'll get that and send it to everybody on council if you need that.
Once we pay this amount, is there
There's a recurring
Does this-
cost of each year.
each year?
$25,000, yep. It's like a software probably, and support cost. You buy the camera and then you have to continue with the support cost.
So-
We don't own the cameras. We don't own this equipment. They own it.
We don't
All
own
we're
the
doing is
equipment.
paying basically a rental fee every year.
Because the equipment is too expensive for us.
Right.
I said I wouldn't want to own the equipment because of,
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that expense.
So this is every year,
Yes, ma'am.
not like a
This
period
is every
set
year, and we
two years,
can opt out of it at any time.
24 months.
Yeah, you have he said it's a 3-year contract. This says 2-year, but
Right.
Right.
Sergeant Smith said they're normally 3, but you're locked in for 2.
personally, I think it's a great idea. I've talked to also folks that are in PD and Conroe, and they have found that they are able to solve crimes much quicker and faster due to this technology. And it's been one of the biggest assets to their city.
All the cities that's used these have had really good investigative success with these cameras. You know, we can always say it's never going to happen here, but it doesn't happen until it happens, you know? So.
Well, if I recall, I asked you last time we talked about this, if there's an Amber Alert that goes out, that license plate's in the system, if they travel through sight of these cameras, you'll automatically be notified.
Absolutely.
As well.
My question is if it's a...
Well, we can't take questions. Thank you.
There it is.
And everyone I've heard, everybody I talked to said they're great. It's a matter of needs and wants. And so mentally, I'm trying to balance numbers. I'm glad it's in your budget. My concern is reoccurring costs and then the labor force behind it to take and detain people to county. We don't have our own jail. So
We don't have our own jail, and like we talked about just a little bit ago, that's just not going to stop. It's when we added more officers to our night shift, we used to run this night shift out here with one officer. Now we've got 3, and we made that schedule for that type of deal. If someone has to go to the county, then we still got 2 officers in the city. And so that's why we did that. But we're never, ever going to be able to say, hey, we're not going to go to the county, because the county is not going to send a bus down here to pick up. You know, they just hadn't gotten that far yet. So.
Personally, we're a growing county and we've got a growing city and we have the financial means, and I don't think there's any dollar amount, well, there's some dollar amounts, there may be too much, but the minute that something's broken into, or this could easily be well-spent money. I think it's well-spent money, and $25,000 to have an additional, a year, to have an additional layer of protection and collaboration with surrounding our area, Southeast Texas. I think it's a wonderful idea.
And I talked with our officers
It's a
yesterday.
very
I talked with our officers and our sergeants yesterday, because we're looking at the same thing that you're talking about, is being able to hold people within this city and then at some point transport them to the county when we have time. That's going to require a whole stuff. So I talked to them about what kind of procedures do we have that works at this county, and how do those procedures work, and how are we going to be able to collaborate with the county to make that better for us. It took me 3 years to get Harris County Sheriff's Department to do what we call now a 2-trip bond that they use in Harris County. But it ended up working once you got a hold of the right person and say, look, this is what works for us all. It took me 3 years to get that working. So it's going to take a while. Montgomery County is growing. We got a little bit over 700,000 people. It's growing, and the system that we're using now, even at the county jail, is not going to, it's not going to be a good system once this place starts to grow and more people start going through that jail and start coming through these different cities. So we have to start looking ahead at what we're doing and making that better for us and our city before we can venture out.
Well, I like it cheap, so I'll make a motion to approve the purchase and use of the license plate reader cameras.
I'll second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept and approve the purchase of the license plate reader cameras. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. It's open for discussion. All those in favor of accepting the approval of purchase for the license plate reader cameras, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will accept and approve the purchase for the use of license plate reader cameras.
Mayor, for clarity, was that for the 10?
For 10, oh, yes, yes. For the amount that's shown here is $27,500, and we were told that that's for 10 cameras. So that amount should equal the 10 cameras, correct? Is that what I understood?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, okay, so that's clear on the record.
And we'll get the resolution document corrected
Yep.
to show that.
Yes, helpful.
You voted aye? Thank you.
Item number 8 on your agenda, consideration of possible action regarding adoption of the Volunteers and Police Services VIP, or VIPS, program. Chief?
We've got the volunteer program, the volunteer and policing program. As you know, these people started out in our Citizens Police Academy, and then they joined the volunteer policing program. They've already started to help us out at any functions that the city may have. We will go farther in using these people to, you just talked about keeping officers in the city. That helps us out when we have to transport our vehicles, to have an oil change. They'll be able to do those things for us. It gives us a little bit more leeway to do policing and have them do those things that doesn't really quite take a policeman to do. But like I said, they've been helping us out already. This program will only grow after each year of Citizens Police Academy. And so we bring you here tonight just for the approval of the VIP program.
I think I've done a good job with it, and they have been a huge help for us during
It's happened.
our parades and other events in town.
It's a really huge help. What we gave you guys were also the policy manual for this program. You also got the liability sheet that all these people sign as they come in, the waiver of liability for the Montgomery Police Department in the city. So all those things, this is not a new program. This program goes on at police departments and cities all across the country. And it's a program that we brought here that's already starting to pay dividends for the city of Montgomery.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt the Volunteers and Police Service Program as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt the Volunteers and Police Services Program as presented. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. It is open for discussion. All those in favor of adopting the Volunteers and Police Services Program, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will adopt the Volunteers and Police Services Program.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Item number 9. Consideration and possible action regarding adoption of the following ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Montgomery, Texas, providing for the holding of a general election to be held on May 7th, 2022, for the purposes of electing a mayor and 2 city council members, places 2 and 4, approving election service agreements with Montgomery County, Texas, and providing details relating to the holding of such election. Do I need to practice my Spanish? Okay. I don't mind, but it might be a little choppy.
Very well.
Yeah, sure. Might be a little Tex-Mexy.
Mayor, this ordinance was reviewed by the city attorney. As you were saying, the places that are up are the mayor, Sarah Countryman, city council place 2, Kevin Lacey, city council place 4, Julie Bates.
I make a motion that we accept item 9 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept item 9 as presented. This motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. It is open for discussion. All those in favor of accepting item number 9 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will accept item number 9 as presented. Number 10 on the agenda. Consideration and possible action regarding the following ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Montgomery, Texas, granting a special use permit to Megan Bird for use of the property located at 20165 Eva Street, Suite C, Montgomery, Texas, 77356, for a microblading business, establishing certain terms, conditions, and limitations, providing for penalty, severability, and effective date.
Special use permits authorize a specific activity in a specific location and include certain stipulations that go with that requirement. They are inherent to the circumstances of the particular applicant. Microblading studios are licensed by the state under the same regulations as tattoo artists are regulated. Accordingly, a microblading studio requires the same zoning process to practice as a tattoo parlor. Tattoo parlors require city council approval by a special use permit. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the matter at the January 4th meeting, recommended approval of this permit. One important point to note that came from the Planning and Zoning Discussion is that persons who are licensed by the state for microblading cannot transition their work to typical tattoos. So you don't need to worry that this is going to start as microblading and become a tattoo parlor.
Right.
Additionally, the special use permit will specifically allow microblading, not regular tattooing. In other words, the business cannot possess a tattoo parlor. They must continue to stay compliant with their state license as well as their special use permit with the city by following along as a microblading business. The city has also granted set microblading studio special use permits in the past. 2 are currently operating. And David Corpedale is here if you have questions from the Planning and Zoning Commission or the operation of a special use permit.
Are most of them, or have the other ones been for the 5 years? I cannot remember.
Yes, ma'am. There's one that is due for renewal this year, and so we're reaching out to them. So.
Okay.
And I believe the applicant is here, Ms. Bird. Are you Ms. Bird? Hi. We've spoken several times on the phone as I've almost bugged her about just ensuring that she's here at the meeting in case anyone has questions. So if you guys would like to speak to the applicant, she is here as well.
And you have read the special use permit, and you're okay with all the stipulations in it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this item as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept item number 10 as presented. This motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. It is open for discussion. All those accepting item number 10 as presented say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will accept item number 10 as presented. Item number 11 on your agenda. Consideration of possible action regarding financial acceptance and completion of the 1-year warranty period for public infrastructure included in Hills of Town Creek Section 3, development number 1019.
After the December City Council meeting, the developer received updated pricing for the repair work to the cul-de-sac of Cement Hills Court and the curve on Ross Lane. The engineer's memo is attached and includes updated pricing from the developer's contractor. The city engineer can provide additional explanation to the City Council on how this plan would address these issues in these areas to the satisfaction of the city.
Right. Good evening. So the quote that they received was from Eurotech USA, which the city has used before. So what it is an injection under the street to adjust the elevations to reduce the ponding in those areas. So if you're looking in your packet, starting on page 111, you'll see copies of the photos. Some that we presented last time, so back in December, highlighting the area that is the goal to be addressed. So on page 111, you see that at the bottom. And then on page 112, again, the goal is not to have no water in the gutter line of the street where water is supposed to be. It's the area that's ponding outside and has stayed ponding outside. On page 113, you'll see photos from January 7th, so just from last week. Obviously, it was a dry week, but you can see there's still a little bit of water that remained in the cul-de-sac. And then also, just kind of ill placement of a truck in a shadow, but the repair that was previously done that we talked about last time as well, that they have gone back out and smooth to address as much as they can some of the quality finishes on the previous repair. So when you get to page 115, you get a copy of the proposal. The total amount to address both locations is approximately $33,000. It's all based on the actual amount of material they use. So this is an estimate. They charge it per pound of material they install. So if they're able to get the desired lift out of the concrete with less material, the price would be less. A couple kind of notes that we had on here is, we agree with the proposed method. We would request that there's a 2-year warranty that comes from Eurotech, that be assigned to the city. So presumably, if the work is completed, the city then accepts the infrastructure that they also take over the warranty provided by the contractor. So if there's any readjustments in that 2-year period, the city has that right to request it. As well as, just a reminder that once the work is done, we would still kind of follow the same process that we did. Reflood the streets, make sure it's addressed the issues, take the same photos that we've done in here to compare, the before and after the work being completed, because that's ultimately the goal. Is get the ponding out of the street, not just necessarily, if they go inject a bunch of material and it doesn't address the issue we have in game.
Excuse me, when were these pictures taken?
The first ones were from December. I don't have the exact date, but it was the first week of December. So page 111 and 112 were from the first part of December, that week after Thanksgiving. And then on page 113 and 114, those are from January 7th, so last Friday.
I was asking, so that's my dad's truck in front of my house, and they haven't been here since October. Just curious. So, all right. So my question, obviously, that's my house.
Right.
Corner, obviously. Right. I get the injection lifting stuff, and I see it done in sidewalks and things like that. I didn't know it worked for roadways. My question is not really about the ponding. We get that. I know that's a problem. What about the concrete itself all around there, like that manhole cover that you see in this picture? It looks like it's been there for 30 years. I mean, as any homeowner, the sidewalk, the manhole cover, my driveway, all that different concrete is all just cracking, looks like crap already. I mean, we let them off the hook, and we're going to take care of this as a city, because it's not just in front of my house, it's the whole neighborhood. You go down to Byron's house, it looks just as bad.
Right. Sidewalks are going in with the builders, and so that's, it's not being done. Part of the process is we have the builders put in the sidewalks, so they're done when the houses are built, as they're driving over them. So there's not the same kind of warranty. And I can say that way, but in terms of we do the 1-year warranty walkthrough, which is back in January of 2020 at this rate, there was not these issues. There were sidewalk issues on Scenic Hills where it was ponding right next to the intersection, and so they did some drainage work in that area to address those. But at that time, we're going back to January of 2020, these issues, some of these sidewalks weren't even in at that time. But to answer your other question, yes, if there's the sidewalks, once they're accepted by the city, if there's cracking, if there's repairs, they are the city's responsibility.
Those sidewalks worked there in January 2020.
Right.
My expectation would be that they take care of it before we turn over anything. I get it. Here we're going to say we've got this contractor that's to make it okay, to fix it. They're responsible to sign off and let us go. I don't think we should do that yet. I think they should make it all right before anything is done.
Well, and who's to say that we, like we talked about last month, that they have them inject this side and now it's the other fourth piece of that cul-de-sac. I mean, at what point are we drawing the line for them? Because that's the same question they asked last month. Are we going to keep going from here?
May I,
Yes, please go ahead, podium, jump in.
Dr. White, for engineering. So we were the project engineer, and did a lot of the oversight for the construction. We were working with the city staff, and Stockcraft as a developer over the last couple of years trying to get this munched out. So to address the concern of just trying to fix one area, and it slowly pushes out the concern. We looked at this option for Eurotech. We also looked at the cost of actually removing panels and replacing panels. I think each quarter of a cul-de-sac is about $35,000 to be able to remove, dispose, restabilize, and reform. That to me is more of a concern because I think you're basically tying into two sides. And how are you actually getting to an end point? I think worst case scenario, you're doing about half that cul-de-sac, about $70,000. I don't think there's a really good option of removing or replacing concrete on the Bronx curb because we're talking about 3 feet of a concern. I think the lifting makes the most sense of that is, well, so there's water in the gutter, but there's supposed to be water in the gutter. So it's an area that's actually developing a little bit on the outside. So, I could drive subdivisions all day long and I see water in the gutter lines most of the time. So as Chris kind of pointed out in the picture he had, it's just that little bitty area that's showing to be declining a little bit on the outside. So with Eurotech's process, they do provide this quote as an estimate with a certain poundage. When they actually go out there, they're going to bring all their equipment, they're going to shoot grades, and they're going to assess about where are they actually going to drill and be able to lift the area to be able to get that stuff drained. And they kind of do the full assessment at the time. If you're actually doing the work, they go out there and do a visual inspection right now to try to get it somewhat estimated. They did say that they have aimed very high with these estimates because some of the work that they've done, I think in Hills 2, just the soil conditions here, they just had to use a lot more poundage that they normally would. They say about double in this area of the world than they would have to most other areas. So they are aiming on the high end. We're hoping that's going to be coming down less. The goal is that they would do a full assessment and be able to get everything around. Because really, the area of concern on page 111 is really that Plainview northeastern piece. If they can lift more of the center and just get it directed to the gutter line is flowing. And that's kind of what's missing here. And even on the curve of Rocks Lane, it's really injecting in the center and just make sure there's a little bit more of a cross slope. But,
Well, Brock's Lane, that curve right there, that's obviously what I'm most concerned about, but why did you guys dig up and replace the entire opposite side? I mean, the whole curve was replaced early this summer because it's doing the same thing. So they fixed that, dug it up, it's beautiful. I mean, not drop stays after it rains now. Right now, they not only does this collect, they've also they've dug in with the auger and tried to cut into it. I mean, just...
So I went back to all the email correspondence and going back and forth. So we actually did try to do a grinding option. It wasn't really the most preferred. So the direction was you need to remove and replace. It was 300 feet. It was about $80,000 if I remember correctly. Now that we continue, as you're concerned with additional items, there's been these large gaps in timelines that just create more and more and more additional items. We're not pointing blame at anybody, but we've got to get to an end. And so with another small area of concern that wasn't brought up initially, it was brought up a year after. Hey, here's a new area. Well, can we try to see what's the most cost-effective option as opposed to just immediately saying let's remove and replace concrete? So we actually did some survey work. We came up with a proposed plan. We made sure we weren't grinding out too much concrete or getting into rebar or causing issues with the strength and depth of the concrete. And they've gone out, I think, 3 different times to just try to make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I think we've gotten, I know it's a little bit of a nuisance, especially for a person who lives in the corner, but it's pretty close. And we are talking about, I don't know month to month if it's always looking like this, but irrigation and other things are going to be contributing factors. We're also doing this in the worst environmental conditions where it's cold in the winter. In other months, there are other environmental factors that could make this look a lot better as well. So I think we are looking at this in the worst light at this time, just if that's consideration.
So from our first discussion, this wasn't even an issue when the first, hey, here's the 2 things that we need to address and then we'll sign off? Or was this part of the first 2? Remind me.
So when we first saw it, this was the road, and there was a delay. We were already in planning for Hills of Concrete 4, and it made sense to just go ahead and do the concrete repair for the other side of the road when we do concrete for Hills 4.
Yeah.
So when that got completed and we kind of did a walkthrough, this was a new condition that wasn't on the list before. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, the original list was clean flood streets and inspector report back. Because at the time of the final inspection in January 2020, the roads were dirty because of a lot of construction at the time, and so that was the initial item. And then kind of from that point, the original contractor was bankrupt, was no longer in business, so the request was made, hey, we need to replace these panels, which was one in the cul-de-sac and one on the curve. Can we wait to do that with Hills 4? So he said, we understand the situation, we can wait till Hills 4. And then it's kind of...
And how long was that wait?
think it was supposed to be a year.
But just to clarify, the original request, Chris, was flood the streets and see where it stands, correct?
Correct, and then repairs were done. Once the repairs were done, it was retested.
Right, we flooded it again to see where the issues were.
Something changed, there was a change in condition of the streets.
Right.
So let's see, did that address the concern, did it move the concern? So kind of what Jonathan was saying here, we lift the streets as push it off to the next. And that's kind of the point is, at some point in time, you chase it until it goes away. And unless you're redoing everything at the same time, you're always going to be chasing and trying to step into it to get it completely resolved.
So we just got to decide whose house we want to leave it in front of? I mean,
Well, it's
pretty much.
getting down
I mean,
Well, I don't think it was a sense that what was done caused a new issue. So the one panel on the cul-de-sac that we have patched, it hasn't created a new problem on a person. And the curve right now that came between the first flood and the second flood, it just appeared, 6 months, a year later, whatever it was. I think we flooded the streets,
You're honestly standing there saying that there's no cause and effect here? Like we raised the concrete on one and it didn't cause the sink on the other, and we replaced one side of the street and the curb and it didn't cause an issue on the exact, they're literally in the same exact location, one on the other side of the cul-de-sac and one on the other side of the street.
It's nothing that we would have done to repair the right side of Rox Lane would have caused the small bird bathing on the left side of her, because we didn't do anything in that area to lower that pavement. The one panel in Scenic Hills Court, we fixed that panel. That other area wasn't touched, and is literally just an area within the panel that doesn't have enough slope to be able to get it to the gutter.
But they're all connected together.
right.
Even you just said that. You replace one and they connect to the other, and where does this?
I don't agree that what we have done has caused and pushed the issue to the next area.
Well, I guess my concern is this, man, it doesn't matter, honestly. I think at the end of the day, the streets are either up to snuff in what we expect it needs to be done, or they're not. And as of right now, I'm of the opinion that they're not. I'm not ready to release anyone responsibility for it yet until it's done. And instead of, I get this, you've been told one thing by the city, then something else, or whatever the case is. If it's me, I'm going to just go out there and I'm going to make the best possible product, period. I'm not going to wait for someone to tell me what I can or cannot get away with to make it pass or shove it to someone else. I'm going to fix it and fix it right and then move on.
And this would be a completely different situation if the contractor didn't go bankrupt. So if the contractor didn't go bankrupt, we would 100% keep them liable. And unfortunately, the maintenance bond that we do have in the city is the developer rather than the contractor, which is something that won't be done again. So that's where we spent $100,000+ for repairs so far. And in the summertime, we were under the impression that a memo was created that highlighted exactly 2 areas that needed to be repaired. Those are the only 2 areas that will be added to a punch list, period. And we fully addressed one because it's dry, and the curve that we're talking about today potentially is something that still needs to be discussed. But now there's an added area of the cul-de-sac. Okay, well, here's another one. And to your point, well, what about this little bit of concrete on the sidewalk? We had a commitment that said, fix these 2 areas and it's been good. And we feel like we're still not there.
But the original instruction was flood the streets and let's see.
Correct, but other conversations happened after that.
And so, one thing that I think to consider outside of this is just going forward on future sections, a timeline for these repairs to be done. And in writing, if repairs are completed within 45, 60 days, it's a complete reinspection, that list is off because of these issues recurring. Doesn't address today, but going forward, something to consider is putting a written timeline on that isn't addressed in this time. That list is out the door because it's if things keep on changing. Now, back to this point at hand, you mentioned, your attack being used in locations. The city, Jonathan mentioned, has used it in Hisletown Creek and other areas. It has addressed the bird bathing. It has addressed the issues. Mike said they did have to call them back out, I think, one time to have them readdress an area under their warranty. And they came out, re-lifted it, and addressed it under warranty. So it's a system that the city has used and is comfortable with. Contractor the city has used and is comfortable with. They know what they're doing. This is what they do. Now, it's, and again, the way, kind of one of the points, the way that item is worded today is just to carry over from the item last time. Because it's, again, the directive from the last meeting was get additional proposals, what fixes this today, and that's what we have today, so it's now is the directive to, okay, have the developer address these issues, follow these steps, and then come back again, or is it something different? And that's,
So for an overall refresher, let me make sure I'm following you.
yes.
So Stylecraft is the developer. We had a concrete company that went bankrupt. So Stylecraft is now, then there's another company that came in, and Stylecraft is now responsible for the bankrupt work. Is that right?
So the city's process is that at the end of the 1 year, at the acceptance of the infrastructure, they're going to put 30% maintenance bond. So it's 30% of the construction cost maintenance bond for the project. In this case, Stylecraft put up the maintenance bond with the city. In normal times, when we did the one in warranty, contractor would be there, Stylecraft would be there, elsewhere would be there, and it would say, okay, here's the warranty items. Mr. Contractor, fix this as part of your warranty that you provided to the developer. In this case, between that time, the developer went bankrupt. So now the contractor went bankrupt. So who's left with the bill is then the developer.
So I see the point that we don't need, that it's hard to hold Stylecraft over the barrel 100% because it wasn't going to work. However, and they've spent $100,000 to rectify the work. I also see the side of the city doesn't take in something that's broken because it's not whole when we get it. And I don't live in the neighborhood, and even if you do live in the neighborhood, do you want to spend your tax dollars on paving them? However, if we're going to have a partnership, but I don't think the 100% burden's on Stylecraft either. And so, is it a partnership of we give a little, they give a little, and together we get this done, and then after 45 days, they walk away, or whatever that time frame is, or a year, 2 years, right? 2 years for Eurotech?
Correct.
And that, they would be held on the hook. So it takes Stylecraft out of it. They would be on the hook, and it would take the city out of it after if we partner with Stylecraft to get this fixed, and then anything within the next 24 months would be on Eurotech's dime.
Correct. Anything within the areas they fixed.
The fixed.
Yeah,
Anything
that
in the
they
areas they
fix.
address.
That's right.
If their
Only those
repair
areas.
does not hold up, they have a 2-year warranty to refix that repair.
Right.
But from what I understand right now, Stylecraft's suggesting that this is what is going to cost to fix it, and they're going to bear the burden of it, and then they're asking us to release them from this. Is that what?
Well, so I think the goal, even from the last meeting, what we're trying to find here is, can we determine what are the last areas that need to be fixed in spades, agree that that's what we're going to go forward and do it, and we can figure out how to get that done together, but we'll go address those concerns within a very reasonable time frame, 5-10 days or whatever. We'll reflood the streets, re-inspect those 2 areas. If they are good and they're signed off, we get it to the next meeting, officially accept the infrastructure, release Stylecraft from the responsibility. As Chris Memo stated, Eurotech's warranty will be transferred to the city, so y'all can still have that warranty directly with them, and that way everything Stylecraft's done, they'll accept the infrastructure, but you still have a warranty item for the areas that they repaired with this particular product. And just, on sharing the cost, just to kind of give everybody an idea, so they spent $80,000 to $100,000 on the first concrete repair. We've done a few things. So I think we were at about $120,000 worth of repairs that Stylecraft had to bear because the contractor went bankrupt. The contract for this entire subdivision was less than $800,000. So they're spent 15% in additional costs just to try to get to where we are with potential additional expenses. So that's just where they're sitting at right now. I just wanted to let you know.
And not trying to sound disrespectful or snotty. I know it sounds this way, but again, why is that the city's problem? I don't see how it is. I just don't. I think the city should be handling a good product. It should be fixed and taken care of. I'm sorry they can't hold the original contractors responsible for it.
And I mean,
that stinks.
Throughout the entire process, inspections, it starts with the geotechnical company who recommended how much stabilization, thickness, and reinforcement of concrete. It's gone through the city's inspections, the engineer's inspections. It tested correctly, it passed the density, it passed the depths of the stabilization, the concrete string passed. Everything on paper worked.
But who hired the contractor?
I understand.
Well,
No, but I want you, who hired the contractor? Stylecraft.
And
So I don't see how the city should pay for it. Stylecraft hired the contractor. Okay, great, it was a bad decision, and we can't change that, we can't undo it, but I don't see how the city should pay for it.
Well,
That was a Stylecraft decision.
Well, again, it's unfortunate you're dealing with an actual homeowner here. That, just the other day, I was walking on the sidewalk in front of my home, and it literally, my big toe was stubbed, and I actually cracked a piece of concrete off. Mark from Stylecraft was out of my house today because the house is peeling off. The paint's peeling off the house already. So I'm not very, from a quality perspective, I'm seeing paint peeling everywhere, shingles messed up, and concrete flaking and breaking everywhere. I don't have much sympathy at this point right now. Unfortunately, it's partially as a customer too. So just put that on the table. I think the city should take a product that's finished and complete and ready to go. I don't think that we should have to worry about any of this.
If I understand correctly, the time frame, we need to have, if that's what council wants to do, we need to have a time frame in which it's not a year down the road, because I think any time that you have anything, I'm going to drive a car for a year and say, okay, you know what, this is a limit.
Further damage.
You're supposed to drive it for 30 days, ma'am. And so I think that there should be a time limit on it, and after that, because from everything that I've seen, we kept moving that goal line. Well, as we know, weather happens, and things happen, and that there became other issues that happened. So let's get a time frame nailed down. Let's get something, however we decide to fund it. If y'all fund it, we fund it, they fund it, whatever. But at the same time, let's get a reasonable time frame, and then be done. Let everybody be done with it. And the city take it in, or Stylecraft out of it, or whatever that is, because waiting another year, we're going to have more issues.
Well, I agree that whatever direction we go forward with, it's going to be a timeline of when this needs to be completed on our side, and a timeline of when it needs to be accepted on the city side after it's completed and passed. But we just hate to continue to push this down, as we continue to say. And I think it has to be defined of what are the last two areas are we fixing, and everything else is good to go. And we'll address these items, we'll bring them back to council for acceptance.
And anything outside these two items are not Stylecraft's responsibility.
There are 3 items here, not 2. We're addressing the ponding in 2 locations, but the aesthetic piece on the cul-de-sac also is in this. It's not in the proposal to fix, but that's still one of the issues, is the aesthetic piece inside that same cul-de-sac from the previous repair.
Where are the sidewalks set? That's not part of this conversation at all?
No, that's okay. The part that was related to sidewalks previously, that's been completed.
Oh, that's a meeting I missed.
This was a year and a half. So, the repair that was previously done in the street, they have smoothed it out, they've gone back, they've done what they can to the extent of replacing the panel again. There's a color difference, it's just because of the age of concrete, that'll work itself out. But they have smoothed to what, my understanding of what they can do. They've gone out there, they've grinded, they've smoothed, to try to address the aesthetic issue of that one panel.
I'm happy to share December photos that I have on my iPad compared to the photos that you have in your package to see the night and day difference of what they've done to be able to aesthetically make that as pleasing as possible. But I think it's hard to say, hey, let's go replace another panel because it's leaking.
I'd just like to see Stylecraft take care of it. I don't know what else you want me to
What is your
say.
text timeline on, I don't see, it says, it can be driven on within 15 minutes of the final injection, but how long does it take for them to do the injection?
I haven't talked to them, but Mike, you may know better than I do how long it took them to do 2 a day.
Yeah, they can hold sections of them a day.
So,
Do it a half road at a time so people can still drive around.
is it unreasonable to say that in the next 30 days you guys fix it and we have a 30-day timeline for city council to come back and approve it, and that gives us time after you fix it to then go flood it again? Because that's the original thing, and that's what keeps coming back, is that it's still holding water after we flood it. So even though we've had multiple conversations, the initial conversation is what seems to be the holdup. We're going back and flooding it, and it's still not meeting the standard of the original conversation.
So I don't think it's an unreasonable time.
Right, because I think, if the contractor's given the okay, let's say he can get the work done in the next 3 weeks. I was backed up. So he gets the work done in 3 weeks, but then a week after that, we can have the streets reflooded and take these same photos that we did and then bring it back. So that puts it, let's call it the 2nd February meeting of council, theoretically, because that's about 45 days, the lead time for the meetings. to have the work completed, photo showing what these are, we'll put them right next to each other, the after of the same time frame of the flooding, just to compare.
So 30 and 30, 60 days is what we're looking
I
at?
think we're looking at 45, the second meeting in February, second meeting in February would be 45 days from now.
Right, but yeah. I was giving you grace to say 60 days, so that way, worst case scenario, you have the first meeting in March in case your tech can't get it done in the time frame. But yes, either
One thing you
way.
can say is, within the next 45 days, the work is completed, and within, 2 weeks after that is when, between our council meetings, is
Yeah.
when the city will flood, take pictures and bring it to the next council meeting. So that the work is done in 30, 45 days, whatever reasonable, and then the city's portion is, because it's just inspection. So the city's portion is done within 2 weeks after that, or to hit the next council meeting outside that.
I'm excited, I hope it works. I just don't want to, as far as, releasing them, everything, I just don't agree with that part. Let them fix it and we'll talk about it again.
So Alan, do we need any formal motion on this, or just the discussion is enough?
I think the discussion is enough, and it sounds like we can table this until it's brought back as discussed.
Now, just for clarification, because again, we want it all just so we're clear. So the two areas that is in the Eurotech proposal to address is the one, what we were on the northeast panel of the cul-de-sac of Scenic Hills Court, and the ponding outside the gutter line and up the street from Rockstone. Those are the two items to be addressed, led by the contractor. Those get reflooded, and that is what gets brought back to the city in the next 45-ish days.
So what's the issue if we go and inject this or the cul-de-sac again, and we have further ponding issues on another section of the cul-de-sac? Are we not even going to address that? We're just going to accept it?
One, we don't expect that, because they're going to be injecting, trying to raise the middle to get.
But we didn't expect this either.
That's why we're still gonna, we're gonna put the exact same photos on here showing the differences.
Right.
The area that they're trying to address is that piece of the cul-de-sac. We'll take these same photos and show them side by side, and it theoretically has addressed the issue, hasn't moved it to another. But that's why, again, we're not.
There's immediately adjacent to this area of concern. Again, this is on the completely opposite side of where we have replaced the panel. Nothing we did there would cause that area here. I think the lift here, getting it to the gutter line, right now the gutter line already drains. So when it floods, you can see that gutter line is good. So we just need to make sure to get it there. The curve is the easiest because it's 50 feet away from an inlet, and we're talking about maybe 6 feet of length to where that ponding is outside of that gutter. So I think the idea is fixing those two areas of concern to make sure that that actually gets there. If there's another spot way down the street that pops up with a new flood, that's what we would say do not, come back and be brought back.
Well, do me a favor, look on page 112. If you look back behind that, my dad's canyon sitting there, it ponds really well. You see right in front of my driveway? Look behind the truck. It ponds really, really deep there and comes all the way around that curve. It's not just 6 feet from the, just so you're aware. I go through the wash this car all the time. It drives me nuts every time I back out and I'm getting wet, which that's not a problem for the city to worry about, obviously, but just the water hanging out there, it's just so frustrating. That's all. It does drain over about a course of 48 hours or so. It drains it all out. It's just frustrating when across the street it's drained out in about 4 minutes. Then I've got 2 days for it to evaporate. What doesn't make it to the, thing. That's the only thing.
I understand that literally in my street where I live, there is water on there almost 24 hours a day just because of heavy irrigation from.
Yeah.
But it's concentrated in the gutter, and it's just.
Let's move from into my driveway, I'll be okay. Gotcha. All right, so they're going to work on it and fix it, and we'll talk again in 45 days, right?
Yes.
So fix these two things, and then 45 days, and then we take them in?
I think we talked about it.
We bring the same line back.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool.
can take a vote to table this until it's ready to be brought back.
Okay, make a motion to table this item 11 until it's ready to be presented again.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we table item number 11 until it is ready to be presented again. This motion is debatable. Amendable requires majority vote. It's open for discussion. All those in favor of tabling item 11, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and we will table number 11 until it's ready to be discussed once again. Next item on the agenda is executive session. The City Council reserves the right to discuss any of the items listed specifically under this heading or for any items listed above in executive closed session as permitted by law, including if they meet the qualifications in sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, 551.073, deliberation regarding gifts, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, deliberation regarding security devices, and 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations of Chapter 551 of the Government Code of the State of Texas. Item number 12 on your agenda. Adjourn into closed executive session is authorized by the Texas Open Meeting Act, Chapter 551 of the Government Code, in accordance with the authority contained in the following. A, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney. B, Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. And C, Section 551.074, personnel matters, city administrative review. And then we will reconvene into regular session. So it is 7:06 p.m. and we will head into executive session.
Move it slow.
Session, so possible action from executive session number 13, consideration of possible actions if necessary on matters deliberated in closed executive session.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Wrong packet. Put up too much in there. And this is agenda item
13.
14, not 13, correct?
13. Consideration of possible actions if necessary on matters deliberated in closed executive session.
So I make a motion that we authorize city administrator to begin negotiations of real property subject to the terms discussed in executive session.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we direct the city administrator to discuss real property that was discussed in closed executive session. This motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. It's open for discussion. All those in favor of directing the city administrator to discuss real property per executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Number 14, discussion and consideration on locating a historic home to the city of Montgomery property.
I make a motion to not take any action on item 14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We take no action on item 14. This motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. We will take no action on number 14. Council inquiry.
Who seconded the motion?
I did.
Kevin did.
Council inquiry?
Just for clarification, do we need any kind of motion or second on 12?
No, we already did 12.
Yeah.
That was all in 13.
That was all in 13.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Anything else?
Announcement.
Yep.
Yes.
On Monday, if you have, we have
Yes.
an Mlk celebration. Mayor going to be on speak. So come out and enjoy. It's at 11 o'clock at Lone Star Parkway.
So come Monday, right?
This coming Monday.
Come as you are.
Oh, there you are.
And the graffiti still on the
Yes, ma'am.
lift station.
It's a problem. That's the homeowner, it's around that.
Okay, last month when I asked about it, we were told that, I was told specifically that that was the fence that the city paid to put in and that we would address it.
I think I followed up with you the next day, but I don't know if you knew that it was a city owned fence. The city does own the gate, the wood that's on the gate. The homeowner didn't like, looking at it and told him, look, this is our fence, this is what we can do. But he was welcome to build a fence, so he built a fence around 3 sides and then tried to hang a banner over the gate, so our guys effectively had to remove his banner to get in. So that's when Mike worked with the privacy fence on the front. So what you see on the side of the spray paint is the homeowner's fence.
So there's nothing we can do about it. We just get to look at graffiti. It's pretty cruddy. And we have no ordinances in regards to graffiti in the city limits?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can sure look around and see if there's something we can do. I'll be honest, I don't know. Where's the graffiti at?
It's written on the side of the lift station right here up the street on Old Plantersville. The wooden fence right here on the turn, it's on the south side of the wooden fence.
Isn't there graffiti? Isn't there an ordinance, no graffiti, or isn't there something?
Yeah, we could.
There's something. There's something.
That graffiti and probably take it off. That's the situation.
Because I know that when the
Like
nursing
even if
home
we
got
pull the
graffiti,
fence
we asked
planks
them
and
to
just
remove
flip them
the sign.
around where the graffiti's on the inside versus the outside.
We'll have, I'll have somebody take a look at it.
Thank you for the promptness.
Anything else?
If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We adjourn this meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. It's 9:33, we'll adjourn. You said aye, Edmund.
I didn't know if he was making that motion or not. I thought we would be here all night.